At least that's the impression when you read the headlines of Tuesday's sports pages, the fallout from a wide-ranging investigation into 380 games across 15 nations. These claims by the continental law enforcement agency Europol, which says its ongoing investigation includes allegations of bogus teams showing up for internationals, referees paid to fix a game, even maintenance staff given money to turn off the floodlights when the right score has been reached. Betting and online sports betting a ripe playing field for organized crime. In this case, a syndicate out of Singapore, says Europol. We're going to see how big the scandal really is. In fairness, Europe's governing bodies have been warning about sports betting for years. But what are they doing about it? UEFA, which has a fresh match-fixing scandal in Italy, and now has to deal perhaps with doping allegations in Spain on its list of worries. Today in the France 24 debate, how to fix football. With us to talk about it, Declan Hill, reporter and author of The Fix, Soccer and Organized Crime. He joins us from Toronto. Thank you for being with us. Also with us, Michel Coutouzis, the author in French of Crime, Trafficking and Networks, The Geopolitics of the Informal Economy. Welcome. France 24's very own Mark Owen, who will woe us with tales of his days back in the dinosaur age when he was an agent and got an insider's look into that business.
Agents intermediary.
Agents intermediary, okay. By the way, you can always join the conversation on Facebook. The France 24 Debates page is there, and on Twitter, our hashtag F24Debate. Now, it's a story that, as you saw, certainly grabbed headlines, and we can say whetted appetites. Kyle Brown explains.
It's a long brewing investigation that threatens to shake the planet's biggest sport. Europol investigators have revealed that hundreds of football matches have been fixed since 2008, earning criminals millions of euros from bets on fixed matches.
So this is match-fixing activity on a scale that we've not seen before, involving hundreds of criminals and corrupted officials and players, affecting hundreds of professional matches and generating very large amounts of illicit profits.
Coordinated raids revealed a network spanning 15 countries. The hub of the activity, police say, was a Singapore-based betting cartel with facilities throughout Europe. Police found at least 380 suspicious matches in Europe and another 300 games outside the continent, mainly in Africa, Asia, and South and Central America. Most fixed matches are said to have been played in Germany, Switzerland, and Turkey. Dozens of people have been brought to justice, and many more have yet to appear in court. Match fixing has reached the highest levels of professional sport, including 2 Champions League games, as well as World Cup and European Championship qualifiers.
It's entirely possible, feasible, and to be feared that a French club or a match in France could get caught up in this kind of affair.
Investigators say the latest findings are based on more than 18 months of police work and are just the tip of the iceberg.
Just the tip of the iceberg. By the way, we have a late arrival. Let's welcome Eurosport's Andreas Evagora. How are you, sir?
Good evening.
Welcome back to the debate. By the way, the head of Interpol last month claiming hundreds of billions are being generated by illegal gambling. Stefan Szymanski on the Soccernomics blog did the math. He calculated, according to the numbers in that report, the average payment to players, officials, $4,706. The average payment per game, $5,263, which is pretty insignificant games if the players involved think it was worth their while to risk their livelihood for such sums. Stefan Szymanski comparing it, Declan Hill, to the salaries, the astronomical salaries that players in the Premiership and the Serie A earn. Let me ask you, on that point, do you think that the math is correct on the part of Europol?
No. I love Stefan. He's a lovely, genial Englishman that I like having cups of tea with. But in this case, he's completely wrong. There's a much better report. There's a much better qualitative survey done by an organization called FIFPro, which I know many of your colleagues know. It's the Professional Union of Football Players. And that revealed in a survey of over 3,000 of their players last year, I believe it was 12 different countries, mostly in Eastern Europe, that over 50% of them get their salaries paid late. This is a systematic problem. It's also a problem that about 98% of professional athletes don't receive the salaries that we think they receive. We concentrate probably 98% of our attention on 2% of the athletes, which are the really, really elite athletes. So this is a problem, however, of corruption that spans the game. I mean, we've seen fixing in under 19 players and teams in Germany. Now, I need to caution people before we start on this debate. Neither myself or I think very many other people, although I may be wrong, think that the level of fixing and corruption in Europe is anywhere near what it is in Asia. I mean, Asia right now is a nightmare as far as much of their professional sports. There are a few honorable exceptions in that continent, but most of the sports in Asia have been affected by this, and they've been affected in a way that is just extraordinary for a European audience to understand. We're just beginning to see that phenomenon here in Western Europe and in North America. There have been fixed matches over here in Canada. But it's still time. There's still an opportunity for us to stop this. But to return to Stefan's mathematics, I'm sorry, they're wrong.
Marco, and point taken about how much players earns isn't necessarily what you see on paper?
In my experience, they earn astronomical sums, and the type of things that I negotiated just for junior players when I worked as a kind of translator and intermediary for an African agent. You know, we would negotiate goal bonuses for like a kid who's joining a third division club in the UK, in England, should I say. And like, I was kind of embarrassed because it's his job to score goals. Why is he getting a bonus to do that, plus the chance to play professionally? It kind of really stuck in my throat a little bit, negotiating those kind of things. Then the further up the ladder you go, obviously the amount of money they make is absolutely phenomenal. The thing that I look at those figures that Stefan Szymanski came out with, I think one thing maybe we're not considering is that we're talking here about people who have a high-risk tendency in their makeup. Maybe it's the fun of playing with that, the fun of losing it all, perhaps, the fun of having that risk that might make them do it.
Andreas Evagora?
Well, just because a player is earning millions doesn't mean he's not going to gamble, take that risk. We know that from many examples. The first thing I would say is there's always been cheating and match fixing in football. Going back 1915, there was a famous case of Manchester United against Liverpool. The match was fixed. There was a 1964 in England, a very famous case where 8 footballers were imprisoned, and we're in France after all, and we all know what happened 20 years ago with Marseille. So there's nothing new about match fixing in football, nothing at all. The difference now is the scale, obviously, and betting, which is centre to all we're talking about, and internet betting. And also I think one thing that's misunderstood is we're talking about who's winning and losing matches. I don't really think that's the centre of it at all. I think people are betting on very small things, the number of corners, the number of red cards, the number of yellow cards. These are things you can all bet on, and they're very easy to fix without anyone even noticing.
100% correct there, because I mean, you'll remember the case about Matthew Le Tissier, the great Southampton player, admitting clearing the ball from the kickoff directly to touch because it was made to bet that would happen. Now, that was taken as a joke, taken as a laugh, but clearly, as Andreas is pointing out, the underlying factor is that this is a game that can be manipulated
Hang on
greatly.
a second. Michel Kouzouzi, don't now, with online betting becoming more and more regulated, don't they have these mechanisms that kick in when they suddenly see a lot of activity on the kickoff of a game, for instance?
Well, for me, the real scandal is not the corruption on football; it's the corruption of internet. The fact that now we are in an illegal betting market and in global match fixing, we have. As you said,
it accelerates the process.
It was always fixing matches, but in small scale, and everywhere in Italy, in Greece, in Yugoslavia. But now we give the possibility to the fixers to work in a global way everywhere in the world. I don't think that that network, that criminal network in Southeast Asia, does something new. It did that for years, but it did that for the China market, for the Singapore market, for the Burma market, but not, of course, for the whole world. This is the issue.
Let me just show you some of the reactions. Liverpool saying it has no new evidence that's come its way regarding a 2009 Champions League match against Hungarian side Debrecen. Other reactions include a statement from the FA in England saying it's not aware of any credible reports into suspicious Champions League fixtures in England, nor has any information been shared with us. And a sentiment that's echoed all around Europe, it seems.
Whenever I hear such news, I'm very skeptical because you never know what is right or wrong. If the report turned out to be true, it would be very harmful for football. Something I would really regret. But let's wait and see what comes up.
Declan Hill, I see you shaking your head incredulously. You do not believe the head of the Swiss Football Federation?
We've moved well beyond a question of belief. This isn't religion. This is a matter of arrests. It's a matter of court trials. It's a matter of convictions. We have got a problem in Europe. And I want to state, I agreed with your last speaker very, very well. I thought he summarized what we're dealing with now, which is a new global phenomenon of match fixing. We've always had fixing in sport. I think your other speakers spoke very well about it. If you go back to the ancient Olympics in ancient Greece, we had corruption fixing then. But what we're witnessing now in European and some North American sports in the last 10 years is a globalization of corruption. The geopolitics of corruption, I think, is a lovely title for a book to summarize this, where you have people traveling around the world and setting these fixes up. Sadly, we've had convictions in Turkey, we've had convictions in Greece, we've had convictions in Italy, we've had convictions in the Czech Republic, we've had convictions in Germany, we've had convictions in Finland, we've had convictions in Switzerland.
Declan, let me just interrupt you for 1 second. Declan,
we've had convictions of
Declan, let me just interrupt you for 1 second.
I can go on and on. But I want to say, this is not belief anymore. We have a problem. Burying our heads in the sand as a sports industry is not going to help us.
The skepticism in this particular case seems to be over the fact that the Europol press conference whet the appetite of journalists who didn't get much more. Guardian blogger David Kahn hints there may be another motive behind the announcement. He wrote in The Guardian, a clue to Europol's intentions came when Wainwright, the spokesperson, said, "This is a sad day for European football and more evidence of the corrupting influence in society of organized crime. But this investigation also proves the value of international police cooperation in fighting back against the criminals involved." Was there a bit of self-publicity in the fact there was this sensational press conference in The Hague?
All I care about is protecting sport. That's all I care about. So I've heard those discussions about motives and things like that. All I want to know, is this true? And at this moment, it's true. We have, you interrupted a long list of countries, European countries, that have had convictions, not arrests, not allegations, not conversations about corruption, but actual people being convicted. This is on the track record. And we only have a small window, a small time opportunity to put into place programs and preventative measures that can protect our sport from going really, really badly.
But wouldn't you have liked it if he'd actually named the Champions League matches in question and named the players?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, wouldn't you have preferred it if in the press conference he'd actually named what Champions League matches he was talking about?
Look, the Champions League game between Debrecen, excuse me for my Hungarian pronunciation, in the Champions League match is well known. There have been convictions already of that. I don't know why they handle their press conference in that fashion. I'm not part of Europol. All I know is that there have been hundreds of convictions now for people fixing matches, and there have been numerous cases in early round Champions League, games that are played in July and August, of matches being fixed. It's a problem. We can't deny it. Now let's start doing things about it. And as I was saying, your earlier speaker talked about the problem of gambling among players. Absolutely bang on. Absolutely bang on. And we should start putting in measures to help players.
All right. At the start of it, in this particular instance, was Singapore, which, by the way, this Tuesday is feeling the heat. But for now, that Southeast Asian city-state has yet to follow through.
Until somebody of prominence is arrested, it's still, it's still the same. It's not as though this announcement we'll see Dan Tan's arrest tomorrow or so on. No, I mean he's still in Singapore, as far as I know, and he likes to go to his favorite casino.
Now, Declan Hill, in researching your book, you went to Singapore. Dan Tan, why is he still free?
Infiltrated a gang of match fixers living in Singapore and Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur. Spent 7 months with them as they did their meetings, wore hidden camera and various recording devices, and watched them in action. It's pretty extraordinary to see those boys going around in that society and how they move. And I was a keynote speaker at Interpol's conference in Rome last month. And I said, look, if we really want to knock back fixers, there's an international arrest warrant. There's hundreds of pages now of European police investigations on these guys' activities here in Europe. Just arrest the guy. Like, let's stop having press conferences. Let's stop having these conferences. Let's stop having these discussions. Let's go out and arrest the fixers, put them in jail, and then we can figure out how bad the situation actually is.
So why is he still free?
Singapore has refused to...
We seem to have lost the connection for now, but hopefully we'll get the connection back with Declan
from what
Hill.
Declan is saying is that this whole idea of the gambling or corruption philosophy is completely endemic at every level of society in let's just say the Far East globally, because this is where the betting syndicates seem to be. If you recall, obviously, the Bruce Grobbelaar case, when there was the supposed Far East betting syndicate that was supposedly trying to bribe the then Liverpool goalkeeper, which of course never got proven in court and all got thrown out. Is the implication from what Declan is saying is that this is such an endemic problem that you can't really begin to get at it with just one arrest?
I would like to say that sport, football and sport is not alone. You have the same phenomenon everywhere as far as we talk about economy, as far as we talk about industry, as far as we talk about any activity going through the globalization of information, of internet. The problem we have is that we create a product. I don't know, in that particular case is to bet through internet. And we wait for years before to think that tool is possible, that the criminals can use it in the same time. We create
so those who created the tool are behind the game.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
We're going to pick up on that point when we come back. We have to take a break, but stay with us. It's the France 24 debate.